I walked into Ridgeline Freight at exactly 8:42 a.m., and the front desk girl wouldn't even glance up. Usually I'd get a nod, maybe a "Morning, Marcus." Not today. Felt like my name tag turned invisible the second I stepped through the doors. I pulled out my phone and saw the notification pop up. Urgent review, 9:05 a.m., conf B7, no body, no sender, just those 7 words. That kind of thing never means anything good, not at Ridgeline. I was wearing the suit Lena had picked out 2 weeks ago for the Redstone dinner, the one she said made me look CEO ready. The same dinner where I shook hands with their EVP and sealed our contract. Projected $31 million over 4 years. Biggest deal of the quarter, maybe the year. That was just 3 weeks ago. I stepped past the dispatch bay and nodded at some of the guys I'd trained back when I still had time to do ride-alongs. One of them, Toby, ducked into the file room like I was carrying something contagious. I glanced at the driver schedule pinned up. My name wasn't listed for today. I hadn't noticed before. As I passed compliance, I caught the tail end of Colin's voice through his office door. He was talking low, smooth, that fake sympathy syrup tone he uses when he's about to screw someone, but wants it to sound like mercy. I heard him say, "It's unfortunate timing, but it's what the board felt was best." Right. I took the long way to my office, slow enough to clock who looked at me and who didn't, slow enough to feel the weight in the air. By the time I sat down, I already knew. It wasn't a meeting, it was an execution. I unlocked the bottom drawer of my desk and pulled out the leather folio. Inside was my original shareholder employment agreement, plus 2 addenda I'd negotiated last winter, after the Q4 blowout and before the Redstone talks. I flipped to the page that mattered, Clause 14. D. Termination without cause within 48 hours of equity vesting. Read it twice. Ran my finger along the line where it said full acceleration of unvested equity, then 1.75 times final base salary, then the kicker, company liable for reasonable legal fees if contested in bad faith. 3 sets of initials sat at the bottom of that page, mine, Colin's, and the board's secretary's. My safety net wasn't buried in legalese. It was right there in black and white. I'd written most of the clause myself. I closed the folio, stood up, and walked out without logging off my machine. Let them figure it out later. I didn't slam the door. I didn't look back. I just headed for B7. The blinds were closed in conference room B7. That was the first tell. No sunlight, no outside view. Just a stale, boxed-in feel, like a place where things end. No laptops, no water. Just one sheet of paper on the table, turned sideways like it was waiting for a signature. Colin sat at the far end like he was chairing a tribunal. Laney, head of HR, and his real-life sister, was on his right, neat little notepad in front of her. Some junior rep I didn't recognize sat across from her, flipping a capped pen between her fingers like she didn't want to be there. "Marcus, thanks for coming," Colin said. His voice had that overly smooth delivery, like he'd practiced in front of a mirror. "We're restructuring." I didn't sit. He slid the paper across the table without meeting my eye. "Your position's been eliminated effective immediately." I scanned the top of the page. No cause listed, no performance summary, no metrics, no notes. Just legal phrasing and an ask for my badge. I asked, "That's it?" Laney cleared her throat like she was bracing for pushback. "You'll receive standard payroll through the current cycle. No additional severance is offered at this time." I stared at the 2 of them. Colin looked at my tie. Laney looked at her notepad. I pulled my badge from my belt and set it on the table. "Understood." Colin blinked, like that wasn't how this was supposed to go. No pleading, no shouting, just a clean drop. "You're okay?" he asked, faking concern so poorly it bordered on insult. I looked him straight in the eye. "Should I not be?" Laney shifted in her chair. The junior rep stopped flipping her pen. I didn't say another word. I didn't give them anything. Here's what they didn't realize. The vesting window on my performance shares hit tomorrow at exactly 1 p.m. Terminating me without documented cause, no coaching records, no formal reviews, no PIP, within that 48-hour window meant one thing: Clause 14, deactivated. That clause wasn't buried in boilerplate. It was written in plain, unavoidable English. If they dumped me without cause inside the window, they triggered full acceleration of all unvested equity, a payout of 1.75 times my final base salary, and coverage of legal fees if I contested. They thought they were saving a couple million by cutting me loose before the payout. They'd just pulled the pin. I folded the termination letter once, slid it into my inside jacket pocket, and nodded once at Lainey. "If there's nothing else." "No exit interview?" she asked. "You just gave it." I turned toward the door. No handshake, no last words. Let them feel the silence for once. As I walked out, I heard Colin whisper behind me. "Did legal vet the clause language?" He didn't say it loud, but I caught it. My shoes hit the hallway carpet a little heavier. I took the executive elevator up to the mezzanine. Compliance and contracts. No music in that lift, just the hum of old fluorescent lights and the occasional groan of cables. I knew every inch of that floor. I'd basically lived there during Redstone due diligence. Knew the staff, the layout, where they stashed the good coffee filters. Reception looked up, saw me, then looked right back down like I was selling something. I didn't wait for the fake smile. I set my leather folio down on the counter, loud enough to land. "Tell Naveen Rao I'm here." That got her attention. She picked up the phone and spoke fast. Less than a minute later, Naveen was walking out of his office, sleeves rolled up, no tie, brow already tight. He used to shadow me back when we were deep in supplier arbitration cases. Smart guy, real steady, never rushed a sentence. "Marcus," he said quietly like I'd just come back from a funeral. We went into his office. He shut the door and pulled the blinds. "You okay?" I was just terminated. Immediate effect. No cause. No mention of vesting or incentive triggers. His eyes narrowed. He motioned toward the chairs, but I stayed standing. Opened the folio, flipped straight to Clause 14D, and set it down in front of him. Subparts 3 and 5 highlighted, one with a yellow tab, the other underlined in pen. He started reading, then slowed down, then read it again. "Did you add this last December?" he asked, thumbing through the addenda. I nodded. "After Q4 projections cleared, during comp cycle, they all initialed every page." He ran a hand over his jaw. "Marcus, this language is tight, like airtight. If they fired you inside the pre-vesting window without cause, they owe you full acceleration of unvested equity at current market value, plus 1.75 times your final base, plus legal fees if they delay or contest. If they try to claim performance now, post-firing, it tilts straight into constructive termination." "They won't find performance grounds," I said. Lainey signed the implementation memo herself, the one confirming multiplier alignment for equity events. I kept the DocuSign envelope IDs, timestamps, metadata, everything. He looked up, brows drawn. "You want me to flag it to lead counsel?" "Yes, quiet first. I'd prefer this collapses from the inside. No trade press circus." He nodded once, already moving. Grabbed his secure scanner, fed the packet through with practiced hands. He took a photo of the core clause with his work phone, cropped it tight, then emailed himself a checksum, and uploaded the scan to his private vault folder. "I'll keep this local for now, no team access, just me." "Good, here's a clean backup," I said, sliding another copy across his desk. "Same structure, same tabs, line you can quote if anyone pressures you. I notified compliance within 90 minutes of termination. That buys you cover." He set the folio beside his keyboard and looked at me like he was recalculating everything he thought he knew about the org chart. "You want me to track chatter from HR?" "No," I said. "If it starts leaking, we're already past quiet." I stepped back toward the door. He followed, didn't open it right away. "Marcus, this is going to sting upstairs." I looked him dead in the eye. Then they shouldn't have bet against the fine print. I opened the door myself and walked out without saying goodbye. Let the paper do the talking. I left compliance and cut through the west corridor to regulatory. No one made eye contact. The ones who knew didn't want to. Darla was at her desk, typing fast, headset off. She saw me and froze mid-keystroke. Her mouth opened slightly. "Marcus, did they—" "Effective immediately," I said. "No cause. Day before vest." Her eyes darted around like she thought someone might be watching. I slid the thinner folder onto her desk. She pulled it close, like it was a secret. Inside, my annotated copy of Clause 14D, board meeting minutes that ratified the addenda, the compensation grid from Q4, and a clean clause history with revisions flagged. She opened it fast but careful, flipping through pages like her fingers already knew the order. She found the section and read out loud, just above a whisper. If terminated without documented cause inside the 48-hour pre-vesting window, full acceleration plus multiplier. I pointed to the bottom corner of that page. That's Lainey's memo from December. She pushed it to finance. Her initials are next to the multiplier paragraph, timestamps intact. Darla leaned back slightly, exhaled hard through her nose. She tapped the memo with the back of her fingernail. They didn't redact this. They didn't even read it. They wanted me gone before the vesting clock hit one. Thought I'd take the hit and disappear. She flipped to the final revision log, ran her hand down the margin, and looked up. You want me to take it to Meredith? If you want credit for seeing a fire coming before the sprinklers, I said. That flipped a switch. She squared her shoulders and stood like someone twice her size. Picked up the folder, pressed it tight to her chest. Meredith's in contracts right now, she said. I'll walk it straight over. Don't stop for anyone. She nodded once and moved fast. I watched her disappear around the corner with the kind of determination that doesn't come from fear. It comes from knowing you've got the truth in your hands. I turned and headed back toward the elevators. I didn't need to babysit the packet. That fuse was already burning. By the time I hit the lobby again, HR was in full scramble mode. You could hear it down the hallway. Drawer slams, rapid typing, voices clipped and sharp. Lainey stood in the middle of the war room, arms crossed but eyes darting. The junior rep from B7 was flipping through empty folders like a paper might suddenly appear if she just looked faster. We need documentation. Anything, Lainey barked. Coaching notes, written feedback, missed deadlines, emails, something. Someone pulled up my profile on the wall screen. My name, ID, title, start date, record status, clean, no warnings, no performance improvement plan, not even a flagged review. That silence that hits when the system gives you nothing? It landed hard. Upstairs, Darla walked Meredith straight into contracts and handed over the packet. Meredith flipped through the tabs with a lawyer's eye, fast but thorough. She stopped on Clause 14D, read the highlighted subparts, then turned the page to the memo Lainey had signed. Her eyebrows didn't even twitch. She just closed the folder, handed it to her assistant, and said, "Pull his full employment file, all addenda, and the Redstone deal approvals. Now." Meanwhile, Colin was in his glass office on the phone, pacing hard, voice rising. "Yeah, I need to know if Marcus's bonus accrual was calculated. Yes, for this cycle," he said into the receiver. "Has it been processed yet?" The CFO, Nolan, picked up. You could hear him through the speaker in Meredith's office. "It's queued for tomorrow's vesting run. Why?" No answer from Colin, just the sound of him slowly sitting down. Meredith didn't wait for another question. She marched straight into HR. Lainey looked up like she'd just been caught stealing from her own fridge. Meredith walked past the staff, straight to the center table, holding Darla's packet in one hand and a printout in the other. "Lainey," she said flatly, "is this your signature on page 7? Lainey leaned forward and squinted, probably hoping it wasn't. Yes, but I didn't read every line." Meredith didn't smile. "Let me help you then. That signature confirms approval of the December implementation memo that added the multiplier language to Clause 14D. Lainey tried again. "It wasn't supposed to apply to him." "You didn't write an exemption," Meredith said. "You didn't void his payout. You triggered it, and you did it in the protected window." The whole room froze. You could have heard a phone vibrate from the next floor. Meredith turned the printout around and laid it on the table. "His employment file is clean. No history of underperformance. No cause. The system logs show no changes made before this morning's termination timestamp." Lainey looked like she wanted to say something, but her mouth didn't move. The junior rep stood perfectly still. Meredith's tone didn't rise, didn't shift. She just let the weight of the words do the work. "You executed a termination that activates a financial clause. That's not just poor timing, that's exposure." Nobody said anything, not even Colin, who'd walked in halfway through and leaned in the doorway like he could disappear into it. Meredith glanced at him, then back to Lainey. "We'll need to draft internal memos for the board by end of day, and a clean summary for outside counsel." Colin cleared his throat. "What's the damage?" Meredith didn't look up from the folder. "Ballpark? You tried to save $2 million. You're now looking at closer to 6. Nobody touched the water bottles. Nobody breathed too loud. I found a corner booth at a coffee shop 3 blocks up. Not one of those airy Instagram places. Just linoleum floors, burnt espresso, and a barista who didn't care if you overstayed your order. I bought a small drip, black, no lid. Sat down, pulled out my phone, and waited. At 10:12 a.m., the email hit, subject, Clause 14D. Body, acknowledge receipt, review underway. Meredith Hughes, lead counsel. No greeting, no sign-off, cold and clipped. That kind of language means they're scrambling. Back at Ridgeline, the compensation committee was already in an unscheduled session. Meredith walked in with her laptop and Darla's folder. She plugged in, threw Clause 14D up on the big screen, and zoomed in on the activation language like a courtroom exhibit. Colin sat 2 chairs down from the CFO, arms folded like a petulant kid. He tried to keep his tone casual. We fired him to save money. It was a restructure. Meredith didn't look away from the screen. You fired him inside the clause fence. That turns a savings into a liability. The room shifted. You could feel the air go tight. Nolan, the CFO, leaned forward and cleared his throat. Standard payout would have been around $3.2 million, but with acceleration and the 1.75 multiplier, it's north of 5.8. That's not even counting potential legal. A silence followed, not shocked silence, calculating silence, that kind where everyone tries to pretend the table didn't just tilt beneath them. Meredith kept going. He notified compliance before HR finalized the termination memo. I've confirmed timestamps. That makes any retroactive claim of cause look like retaliation. That's what outside counsel's going to see. Someone from investor relations asked, "Can we dispute the activation, call it a technical misfire?" "No," Meredith said. "The language is tight, the clause was properly ratified, and the triggering event is time-stamped." He handed over his badge without incident. Didn't escalate, didn't threaten. He played it clean, and now the paper is louder than any argument. Colin tried again. "There has to be some room. We didn't expect—" "That's the problem," she cut in. "You didn't expect. You didn't check the comp calendar. You didn't confirm his performance file. You didn't read the memo your own sister signed. You just pulled the trigger." Lainey, sitting across the room with a legal pad in her lap, had stopped taking notes completely. Her pen was still, her face blank. A junior board member finally asked, "Is there a fix?" Meredith's answer was surgical. "There isn't a clean one. Settle fast or invite a bigger mess. If we stall, the board's going to ask why we terminated a high performer inside a protected window with zero cause documentation. And once they ask that, they'll ask what else we've missed." Nobody touched the water bottles. Even the ceiling vents sounded too loud. Colin didn't speak again. Meredith folded the printout and laid it on the table. "We can authorize outside counsel to initiate contact, present a settlement, and try to keep this out of litigation. But the number's going to hurt." Nolan just nodded once, face pale. Lainey didn't say a word. In my booth, I refreshed my inbox again. No reply yet from Redstone's GC. I stirred my coffee with a stir stick I didn't need, glanced at the local news on mute. Trucks rolled by outside, same as always. They were still trying to find a way to erase a signature. I'd already made sure the signature wrote the rest of the story. The call came just after 11. My phone lit up with a number I recognized from board packets. Internal line, New York area code. I stepped out of the coffee shop before picking up. "Marcus?" A woman's voice, calm but tight. "This is Eve Halpern. I sit on the board." I leaned against the brick wall outside, thumb in my pocket. "I know who you are." She got right to it. "Did you intend to trigger Clause 14D?" "No," I said. "I intended to work through Vest. They chose the date, not me." She let that sit for a second, then flat. "Our outside counsel is estimating a higher exposure than initially flagged, because the clause ties to a equity at current valuation, not grant value. Plus multiplier. Plus legal fees if this drags out." "That's what it says," I replied. She didn't push, didn't defend it. That told me everything. I gave her the only line that mattered. "I'm not looking to torch the place. I just won't be robbed." She exhaled once, just enough to make the phone buzz. "Understood." We didn't say goodbye. Call ended clean. I pulled out my second phone and opened my banking app. Drafted a short message to my commercial banker. Per the guarantee agreement dated June 2022. Request to withdraw personal guarantee from Ridgeline, revolving credit line. Effective date of termination, Today. Rider language supports auto-release. Sent. Got a reply 8 minutes later. Simple. Release acknowledged and executed. UCC amendment to follow. That was the quiet kill shot. The personal guarantee was the thing Lena's brother had leaned on 4 years ago when they couldn't lock the rate without some extra reassurance. That was my name, my credit, my stake. And I'd made sure, before I ever signed it, that the day they cut me, the safety net got cut too. If the bank wanted comfort now, they could call Colin. Next, I messaged Redstone's general counsel. FYI, my termination was without cause and involuntary. Triggers carve out in Section 9B of the service level non-compete. He replied fast. Thanks for the heads up. You around this afternoon for coffee? 2:30, same place as last quarter. I tucked my phone away and crossed the street, sun hitting just behind me. No victory lap, no fireworks. But for the first time that day, my shoulders actually dropped a little. At exactly 11:36 a.m., Meredith's email came through. Subject line read, Settlement Confirmation, Clause 14D. I opened it right there on the sidewalk outside the diner. Final settlement amount, $5,812,400, wire confirmation attached, NDA 2, no press, no admission. Just a line in the document that read, full satisfaction of contractual obligations. I didn't even open the NDA right away. Just stared at the number for a second, then slid my phone back into my pocket. Across the booth from me, Redstone's general counsel sipped his coffee and nodded like he'd already guessed the outcome. Looks like Ridgeline blinked, he said. They had no cards left, I said. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a folded napkin, slid it across the table. Westridge Logistics. They've been watching the Redstone deal from the outside. Their CEO wants a call. I picked up the napkin, scanned the number, didn't say anything, just nodded. Your clause triggered our carve-out, he added. You go to a competitor, we follow. No non-compete walls left standing. Good to know. I stood up, dropped enough cash on the table to cover both coffees, and walked out without needing dessert. Inside Ridgeline, word had already leaked. Darla sent me a 2-word email at 12:04 p.m. Subject, done. Body, cleared, congrats. I shot back a thumbs-up emoji and a coffee gift card code. She earned more than that, but I knew she wouldn't take a check. Colin didn't lose his title, not officially. They reassigned him to lead a new innovation pod. No team, no budget, no roadmap. A hallway with a nameplate, basically. Laney resigned to pursue new opportunities. That's how they spun it in the Friday announcement. The rest of the company knew better. I didn't strut, didn't hit LinkedIn with a cryptic new chapter post. Just went home and opened the box the movers had dropped off the night before. It had my old desk photos, Redstone plaque, driver pin from my 3rd year, and the pen set Lena gave me when I got promoted to SVP. I laid everything out on the kitchen table, wiped off the dust, and started packing again. I'm a 57-year-old man. I've been a provider my whole life. Brought my lunch, hit my marks, didn't whine. But if I'm being honest, Lena's voice got louder every year. She used to throw it in my face. How her brother made my career, how Ridgeline was their shop, not mine. Like, I got dragged in behind a family name, not promoted by results. Looking back, I should have known where that road went. When the wire hit and the number cleared, Lena stood in the kitchen, arms folded, and asked me real soft, "Can you just smooth things over with Colin? Keep things calm for the holidays?" I looked her in the eye and said, "I'm not fighting with the calendar." Then I told her about the rider, the personal guarantee I'd carried on Ridgeline's credit line for 4 years. The one I wrote an auto-release into, effective the minute I got cut. If the bank wants reassurance now, I told her, they can call your brother. She didn't flinch, just nodded like she already knew that page was coming. I signed the settlement the next morning. Not the NDA, though. Not the way they wanted it. I returned it redlined. No gag on my employment dates. No restriction on Clause 14D if someone asked why I left. They accepted the markup. That said more than any headline. I took Darla's resume to Westridge and handed it to their COO myself. Told him she was the best hire they'd make this quarter. They brought her on the following week. Naveen got a thank you bottle, expensive one, sealed with a handwritten tag that said, "For when this is history, not a headache." Redstone's GC called again, said they'd move their volume over if I landed where I said I would. I forwarded the message to Westridge's COO that same hour. We set a start date, partner track path, no cousin on the org chart, no favors to repay. I didn't blast anyone online, didn't leak anything to the press. I sent one text to the board's general inbox, public record link to the UCC release on the credit line, plus a screenshot of the settlement wire confirmation. No caption, no emoji. You can't out-argue a cleared transfer. If you're waiting for some speech about revenge, I don't have one. This wasn't about burning bridges. It was about not letting people who never read the fine print decide what I'm worth. Last thing I did was drop my access card in the mail with a sticky note. 4 words. Clause 14D, line 14. That line read, in my own words, failure to honor this clause is a business decision subject to restitution and reputational consequence. They initialed it, twice. I took my coffee out on the porch and watched the trucks on the interstate for a while. Good rigs, good drivers, all just trying to get home. I'm still one of them. Took me longer than it should have to remember. I never needed anyone's last name to keep moving. If you're my age and still don't get it, don't yell, don't beg, don't threaten. Write it down. Get it signed. And when the time comes, let the paper do the talking. That's all I did, and that's all it took. Would you have redlined the NDA or walked away with the check? Drop your answer in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more.